What is rest? Intense work, according to this philosophy. Pointed at a higher ideal than our own selfish pursuits. That is rest. We are back with another reflection on the daily Vedantic. And this is on one that is so counterintuitive. It kind of reminds me of this phrase I heard a student of Swamiji's was telling one of my other teachers, Joseph, that I think it was maybe 4 years into Joseph studying this philosophy, and one of the other students tells him after a lecture, he says, "Man, you have no idea the grenades that Swami's planting in us." And I remember getting a brief explanation of what that meant, but that itself has been a grenade. And years later, I'm like, holy shit, that is one hell of a way to describe it. Another way to talk about Vedanta, which means end of the Vedas or end of knowledge or culmination of knowledge, depending on the context. Another way to talk about Vedanta is Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana Dharma means eternal principles. So this philosophy, unlike, say, contemporary or conventional views on Christianity, where it's like, no, if you take any of it, you got to take it all. You can't be a buffet Catholic. I remember hearing that as a kid. This philosophy is the opposite. Take the concepts, the principles, those eternal principles, of which there's really only about 25. Take them and see which ones fit within your life, which ones kind of blow you away when you hear the truth in it, maybe the first time you hear it, or you realize, oh, that does say something fascinating. Let me think on that. The ones that I talk about quite often on here as an example would be something like wisdom is the capacity to see the end in the beginning, or surrender to a duty-bound existence and immediate peace follows, or attach, you lose, detach, you gain. You can kind of jot these down and spend weeks, months, years reflecting on whether they're true or not, or the depth of the truth of them. But that articulation of it's like a grenade being planted in you. The one that just continues to go off over and over again, bigger and bigger, is one from the same sage that said, attach, you lose, detach, you gain. Swami Rama tirtha, who's a sage about 100 years ago. And our teacher, Swami Parthasarathi, he'll mention him in various lectures at the ashram. It's his favorite sage. He would say that you can't surpass Rama tirtha. You can just equal him. So the highest of the high. And one of the phrases that Rama tirtha said that just is like a grenade that continues to go off, maybe 8 years after I first heard it. And I should add in the beginning, it was kind of like, I kind of like these other principles a little more. But the principle, articulation, he was giving a lecture in the US. So it was about 1902, 1903. And a woman says, Swami, what is rest? What's its place in our life? And as the story goes, without hesitation, he said, intense work is rest. Talk about unexpected answer to what is rest. Rest is usually we think of as a form of inaction. And yet, in this philosophy, in the Gita, it's so paradoxical. This philosophy just really flips you around. And yet it doesn't just stay. It's not like a koan, like a Zen koan that gets you to give up thinking because it's unsolvable. You know, what's a sound of one hand clapping? It doesn't get you to give up your rational mind. It's a knot to untie with your rational mind, and then it's your rational mind that gets to appreciate it. Intense work is rest. So paradoxical. The Gita talks about how a sage sees action in inaction and inaction in action. So this is related to intense work is rest. Rest is inner peace. Has nothing to do with whether you're vertical or horizontal. A lot of restless nights have been had throughout the world, throughout our house, where you might be laying horizontal. So rest has nothing to do with that. Rest has nothing to do with horizontal or vertical. It has nothing to do with lights on or off. It is inner peace. And this philosophy is clear. That comes from action and knowledge. And for the vast, vast, vast majority of us, comes from both. A combination of that. Service as well as knowledge, study, reflection. And as profound as a statement or a knowledge bomb or a grenade that gets planted of changing our orientation around rest to not be an absence of action, but actually in the midst of it, as unintuitive that might sound, especially to an American mind that thinks like, dude, this whole life is act, so that we can rest. Like that's the goal, is to have a life of inaction. And what this philosophy says in stark contrast to that is we're built to act. It is in our attempts to escape action that creates our unrest within us. The shortcuts, these dynamics fly in the face of nature and our nature, which is to act. Aristotle said, happiness is a being at work in accordance with virtue. There was work in paradise before the fall in the book of Genesis. Work is not something that's foreign to us. It is what we're built, designed, what not just we're built to do, but that is our rhythm, is action. And as profound as the statement is, as paradoxical as it is, it's actually quite logical, experiential. When have you felt the most satisfaction? Is it on the other side of sleeping in for a couple days? Taking off work for 2 weeks? Recovery is valuable. Don't get me wrong. Sleeping well is valuable. Invaluable. But rest is more than sleep. Rest is more than a pause and satisfaction, inner peace, the rest that we're really seeking. Experientially, it's always on the other side of working really hard in the service of something greater than ourselves. You can get tastes of it by just working really hard in service of yourself. Fleeting tastes of it, but the real satisfaction, if you go back and think about the last few weeks, years of your life, the really satisfying moments. Really satisfying moments are always on the other side of something hard and intense. Because that's the pause you know deep down you deserve. But the next layer of this is recognizing, oh, this is what gives me that inner peace. Working towards a higher ideal than just my selfish pursuits, that is like the storehouse of inner peace. And the reorientation then leads to an engagement in action that leads to this unleashing of energy within you. As is defined within Vedanta, right action is that which generates energy. Wrong action is that which dissipates energy. So you add in right action to intense work, and you have a generation, explosion of energy that a nap could never give you. That 10 hours of sleep could never give you a satisfaction and an explosion of energy that 3 months with your feet in the sand, drinking Mai Tais could never give you. What is rest? Intense work, according to this philosophy. Intense work. Pointed at a higher ideal than our own selfish pursuits. That is rest. That's the rest we're all chasing. It's the only real rest there is. And maybe this is just a dormant grenade that's like, that sounds a little too paradoxical. It's a bridge too far for my rational mind right now. But if you entertain the idea for a few weeks, a few months, at this point, I can't think of any other definition that gets even close to it's not a philosophical concept or an interesting little soundbite. I just rationally can't think of a single definition that gets even close to defining rest other than intense work. That is rest. And that's today's reflection on the Daily Vedantic. We'll see you next time.